Welcome back with a smiling face. Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. The Sorrow of Omega's Broken Heart. Episode 4. Chapter 43. What do you mean? Elisa asked with confusion. Nothing. He responded. He looked at the bartender. Give her a glass of orange juice. No, I like apple juice. She corrected him. He nodded his head. Note it. What? Nothing. He said that again and glanced at the bartender. You heard her? Yes, sir. With no alcohol. He reminded him. Got it, sir. Elisa stared at Lucas. His eyes caught hers. What? I can't understand you. No one could. She rolled her eyes and tried to find her best friend in the crowd. You said that Tisa is coming here. Now where is she? How would I know? What do you mean? Where is your friend Max? He shifted his eyes everywhere. Then he lifted his hand and waved at someone. She saw Max coming towards them. I was looking for you. Max said to Lucas and smiled at Elisa. Where is Tisa? She asked Max. She did not come with me. What? Why? Max looked upset. He replied with a disturbed tone, I don't know what's on her mind. She said she could not go anywhere with me until her birthday. Elisa sighed. She thought Tisa would come, so she agreed to come to this party. But now she would have to feel bored here. It looks like you suggested the same thing to your best friend too. She heard Lucas. She turned to him. He stood up and said, I am coming in a few minutes. Where are you going? Max replied to her on behalf of Lucas, he will be back. We have something urgent to talk about. Oh, okay. She saw Lucas go to another side. Many boys were there waiting for him. Then Lucas walked to the stairs and went upstairs. She could see him standing on the side and talking with a few men. She frowned at the thought of those men. Who are they? She sat there for a while and asked for another drink. She felt a few gazes on her. She glanced around and saw a few boys staring at her. They did not have good intentions. She could guess their intentions with their eyes. Elisa. She saw Logan with his friend Wade. He came to stand beside her. Logan, hi. Hi. What are you doing here alone? He asked as his eyes moved to her clothes. She somehow lowered her eyes, and felt embarrassed. This dress was really grabbing the attention of the boys. She cleared her throat and asked, Where is your partner? I heard you can't enter the party without a partner. Who can stop our alpha from entering a party? Wade asked from beside Logan. Elisa felt Wade was right. No one would dare. But we came together since he does not like to show his power. Wade explained. Together? I thought only a girl could partner with a boy at this party. Logan frowned, his brows crinkled. What are you saying? Who told you this? Elisa moved her eyes upstairs to Lucas, who was talking with some boys. This man. She muttered angrily. How dare he lie to her about it? He could have come with Max or any other friend. Logan's eyes turned to where she was looking. His eyes turned dark. Did you come here with him? She nodded her head. Yeah. Logan got mad after listening to her reply. Elisa, what are you doing? You did not come for training yesterday for him, and now you are here at this party with him. Elisa felt irritated by his question. So? He raised his brows. See? You are even speaking like him. He is impacting you badly. Nothing is like that. Wade told Logan that he was going to talk with someone. He nodded and sat beside Elisa, where Lucas was sitting a while ago. Elisa, I am listening. She replied. Her gaze was incessantly drawn to the upper floor. She saw a few girls approaching Lucas. He began to talk to them. When one of them started to go closer to him, he pushed her and said something that made her look upset. Then those girls left his side. Suddenly, Elisa felt a hand caressing her hair. She turned her head to Logan. He smiled at her. It was a soft and sweet smile. I am sorry if I offend you with my questions. She would have passed out looking at him smiling if he had not rejected her that night. But now, everything has changed. She was about to push his hand, however, her eyes fell on Lucas. He was staring at her. She rolled her eyes and spun her tool toward the bar. So now he is looking at me. He does not have any responsibility at all. He left me here alone. She thought about it and got angry inside. Logan moved his hand away and said, if you don't like this place, I can drop you home. But a voice behind her intervened just as she was about to say that she wanted to go back. She can't go anywhere with you. She did not turn, but Logan did. Lucas, why did you bring her here? Lucas moved toward Elisa and replied, she came here with me, so you don't have to think for her. You left her and she was here alone. What if someone she is not a child? This time, Elisa turned to Lucas. Before she could say something, Lucas questioned her, didn't you agree to be my date tonight? Date for tonight? How dare you even say that? Logan stood up from his tool and proceeded to Lucas. Elisa did not want them to argue like that night again. So she looked at Logan and confirmed him, I came with him. He will drop me. Don't worry. Logan's face turned grim. Does your father know that you came here with him? Elisa was taken aback by Logan's question. She remembered how angry her father was when he saw Lucas drop her off at home. Oh. So you are trying to be her father now? Lucas scoffed at Logan. Elisa stood up and let out, Logan, please. I don't want you two to fight. I am not a child. I know what's good for me. So stop telling me what I should do. When Logan heard her, he immediately felt enraged. He nodded his head fiercely. Your wish, but I alerted you about it. See you in training. After that, Logan stormed out of the club in a huff of wrath. Elisa shifted her attention to Lucas. Let's leave now. The party has just begun. And you are my date. How can I let you go this early? What? He moved closer to her face and smirked at her perplexed reaction. Let me teach you how to enjoy the nightlife. Elisa blinked her eyes a few times as she tried to make sense of what he was saying. She felt him gripping her waist. She was dragged after him by his arm. Where are we going? She asked him. Lucas turned his head in her direction as he neared her. Let's dance. When they made their way to the dance floor, the music was so loud that it was almost painful for her ears. Dance? I had never danced before. Instead of listening to what she had to say, he dragged her to the dance floor. I can't dance. She yelled at the top of her lungs in order for him to hear her. People could not be heard because of the extremely loud music and beats that were playing. He chuckled at her. I know how to dance. Don't worry, baby. He replied and pulled her towards him. Her eyes widened when his one hand grabbed her waist. His other hand held her hand, which he placed on his shoulder. He started dancing with her right away. She was unaware of what he was up to at the time. She was entirely unprepared for any of his dancing moves, but he was making her dance because he knew her every move. The DJ played a song with full beats. The lights were flickering, and smoke could be seen in every direction. She was only able to see Lucas through the thick cloud of smoke. Suddenly, she started to enjoy dancing. She focused her attention on each step as best she could. She was a quick learner, and as a result, she was able to memorize his movements. Lucas spun her around, and her back pressed against his hard chest. She felt him move both of his hands to her waist. She felt her heart start to beat fast because of his actions. They were very close as their bodies pressed against each other. His hands moved to hers as he caressed her arms and placed them on his neck slowly. He rested his head on her neck and turned his mouth to her ear. She felt his breath in her ear. She closed her eyes and heard him, "I left you for a few minutes, and you started to talk to him? I did not like that." She opened her eyes and turned around to look at him. "He was giving me company. You almost left the club with him," he said and pulled her to him. This time, her front touched his chest. She pressed her hands on his chest. "You are talking like a possessive guy." "Am I?" "Yeah." She nodded and moved her hands up slowly, then rested them on his neck. "What's your plan, Lucas?" She wiggled her brows as she inquired. He whispered to her, "Making you mine." He moved his face back and looked at her reaction. Elisa stopped moving and was stunned by his words. She stared at him with widened eyes. He broke into laughter. Looking at his laugh, she finally let out her breath, which she had been holding for who knows how long inside. "Look at your face." "I was kidding, baby." He cracked up. She hit his arm and laughed with him. They started to move again. After a few minutes, Elisa began to jump with the beats. She was sweating while dancing for a long time, but her legs did not want to stop. She felt drunk without drinking any alcohol. Now she was getting YT-select clubs and parties. Dancing was not a bad thing, and it was enjoyable too. Lucas pulled Elisa away from the crowd when he noticed that she was getting tired and that the ache in her legs started to feel painful. They came to the bar. She chugged down a glass of ice water and exhaled deeply. While she was dancing, she was experiencing feelings of thirst, but she seemed to feel better now. She collected her bag from the bar counter and then pulled out her phone from within. When she noticed the time, she was taken aback. 11 p.m. Her heart began to throb in worry. Her parents might be at home, worrying about her. "Don't worry. They have not departed from their party." She heard Lucas and looked at him. He nodded at her. When she opened the lock on her phone, she found a message that had been sent from her mother's number. "Elisa, we got stuck in the party. We will come late at night. Don't wait for us. Check the door and lock it before sleeping." Elisa felt she got her life back when she saw the time of the text. Only 10 minutes ago. She exhaled deeply. Her parents might be thinking that she had reached home and was sleeping right now. "I want to go back now," she said to Lucas. He nodded at her. "Let's go." They left the club. They waited for the guard to bring out Lucas's car while they stood there. Elisa started walking down the street while Lucas was still standing on the side. From where he was standing, Lucas was observing her. The temperature outside was very different from what it was like inside the club. 3 boys were passing through there at that time. Lucas was a little far from her, so they thought Elisa was alone. They came to a stop and peered at her with eyes brimming with desire. "Hey! Darling! Where are you going?" One of them spoke up and made their way towards her. Her old incident came to her mind when she understood what they would try to do. In her panic, she took a step backward and almost forgot that she was not alone. However, when she stepped back, she bumped into someone. Her frightened mind came to be calmed when she smelled Lucas's cologne. She was about to turn but stopped when she felt a black jacket had covered her upper body. It looked like he was wrapping his jacket around her arms. She was taken aback by it. Her gaze wandered from the jacket to the three young men standing nearby. As if they saw a ghost, their eyes widened when they looked at Lucas. They stepped back, and one of them fell to the ground. Three of them ran away as fast as they could. She was bewildered by their reactions. She turned to Lucas. He was gazing at the street. He is not looking dreadful at all, so why did they run like that? She thought as her eyes were staring at his face. A black car stopped in front of them. The guard came out and handed the key to Lucas. "Sir," he said, bowing to Lucas. Lucas gave him a tip and opened the door for Elisa, who was still lost in thoughts. Elisa, she heard her name coming from his mouth and came back to her senses. He did not call her name usually, so it jerked her out of her thoughts. She sat in the passenger seat. He came to the driver's seat and started the car. She turned to him and asked curiously, "Why did they run away like that?" His eyes turned dark, which she could not notice because of the dark street. He replied with a cold voice, "They looked at something they should not have looked at. So I show them something they will regret witnessing for the rest of their lives." Elisa was staring at Lucas. He was driving the car in silence. "What did you show them?" "Something you should not know." "Lucas, why are you confusing me? Tell me, come on." She tried to persuade him. "Will you tell me why you need Logan?" After she had heard his query, she looked away from him. She had no intention of telling anyone else the story of her wolf. It's very personal. Then, that was a personal matter as well. "Okay, fine. Don't tell me." "Good girl." She wanted to get mad at him, but the moment she turned to him, his face made her calm. He was not a bad person. He did not try to take advantage of her in the club. Though he was known as a playboy, he did not do anything terrible to her. She showed some trust and went to the party with him. He did not let her trust be broken. Elisa leaned on the seat and said, "You are not a bad guy. Why don't you speak to your parents normally? They don't want me. They are happy with their one son. Don't behave like a 5-year-old kid. You sound like a jealous child who is filled with envy." "Do you think so?" "Yeah. I guess I have always had a very possessive attitude towards the things that are mine." He stopped and cast a quick glance in her direction. "But Logan took them away from me each and every time." She could not understand what he was talking about. But she shook her head. "He is not a bad guy either. I know what he did to me was wrong. But that's our matter. Other than that, he is a family person. You are his brother. If there ever comes a time when you are in danger, he will destroy everything in order to save you." "Really?" "Yes, of course. I know him." "How long?" "What?" she asked as she could not get his sudden question. "How long have you been in love with him?" Elisa thought about it. How long was she in love with Logan? She had admired him since childhood. Though she realized her love when he came to save her from those boys who tried to force her. "I don't know," she mumbled. "From childhood," he replied. She jerked her head towards him and asked, "How do you know?" "See? You lied to me. You said you don't know." "No, I am confused about it. But tell me, how do you know? I was not blind when I was here. His reply left her speechless. You noticed it? We were kids at that time. I had seen how you used to look at him. When I returned to this pack, I got to see the same Elisa, who was still looking at Logan with love in her eyes. I must say, you are a loyal girl. Elisa's cheeks became flushed with redness. She was unsure if she should feel embarrassed or not about the situation. Suddenly, his words hit her. Wait a minute. What? He asked. You observed me in our childhood days. Oh please. I didn't observe you, I had noticed it when your mother took you to the pack house and you only came to talk with Logan. Who would not notice it? Bro, I am not your brother. Oh, okay. Why so serious? She blinked when he glanced at her. Well, Lucas, you are right. You guessed correctly, happy. The car turned quiet again. After a few minutes, he let out, you still love him, don't you? She was feeling sleepy. She closed her eyes and did not reply to him since she did not know the answer either. The car stopped in front of Elisa's house. Lucas turned to her, and his eyes remained on her face. She had fallen asleep. Her head was resting against the glass of the window. A few strands of her hair had made their way onto her face. He let out a sigh and stared at her for a long time. His phone buzzed, and he answered the call right away so that she would not wake up. They just departed from my home, Lucas. It will take 1 hour from my house to reach theirs. Lucas's gaze did not leave Elisa's face. Okay. He replied and cut the call. He got out of his car and went to open the other door. He bent down and unbuckled her seatbelt. He glanced at her purse. Since he had seen her putting her house key inside her bag, he opened the chain and took it out. He gently took her into his arms and then closed the car door with his leg. He walked to the house and opened the door with the keys in one hand while holding her with the other. You really need to eat more. You are like a feather to me. He muttered and entered her house. He went upstairs to her room. When he came to take her here in the evening, he noticed her room from downstairs. He closed the door behind him and slowly laid her on the bed. He sat on the bed beside her and observed her. His fingers moved the hair strands from her face. She was either in a deep sleep or feeling something soothing that helped her to fall asleep peacefully. He whispered to her while stroking her cheek with the back of his knuckles and said, You are driving me insane. I am terrified of who I am right now. If I break you, will you forgive me as you did with Logan? His fingers came to rest on her lips. He gently rubbed his thumb across her lips, and he could feel the softness of her lips beneath his fingertip. You are wrong. You don't need him, but he needs you. However. He paused for a moment, then continued, You caught my eye. Now, even if you want, you can't back away until I let you go. He leaned on her face and nuzzled his nose against her cheeks. Then his lips brushed against hers softly. At that time, he lost control over his desire to kiss her. She did not awaken like he had taken possession of her mind and body. He pressed his lips against hers and kissed her tenderly, which lasted for a while. He moved back after kissing her. He wiped her lips with his thumb and then withdrew his finger from her lips. She shifted her body a little, then went to dreamland again. But she could not see the man in front of her, who had just kissed her as he wished. He stared at her with his eyes glowing dark orange. I am too dangerous for you. You know nothing about me. What if I cage you in my world, Omega? Elisa opened her eyes. She yawned and sat up in the bed. As she took a look around, she realized that she was in her bedroom. She glanced at the window. The window in her room was open, and she could see the bright sunlight streaming in. When did I come to my room? I was in the car and… She paused and looked down at her. Lucas's black jacket was still on her body. She could still recall the way he had wrapped it around her. She was with him last night until she fell asleep in his car. Did he take me to my room? She unknowingly pulled the leather jacket close to her nose. She sniffed it, and she was stunned. It smelled different but pleasant, and it was mixed with his cologne. Unexpectedly, she blushed and put the jacket beside her on the bed. She got out of bed and went to the bathroom to take a shower. Since it was a Sunday, she did not have anything to worry about in terms of her studies. She made her way downstairs in a relaxed manner. Her mother was sitting on the couch. Surprisingly, her father was also sitting there. They were laughing at each other. Elisa came to a stop in the corner and smiled at her parents while she looked at them. They seemed to enjoy being together. She was convinced that they were the happiest couple in the world. They both loved and cared for each other. Such a happy couple. She was thinking and feeling sensitive emotions. When her mother noticed her, she immediately called for her daughter, Elisa, come here. Good morning, Mom and Dad, she said to them. Good morning, my princess. Her father said and patted the seat beside him on the couch. Elisa sat beside him. Her mother stood and announced, I am going to set breakfast on the table. Then she went to the kitchen. When did you come last night? Glenn asked his daughter. Elisa heaved a breath as she struggled to determine whether or not they had seen her with Lucas. She didn't even know what had happened last night. She needed to ask Lucas about it. Additionally, she was wondering why her parents didn't wake her up when they reached home. I could not remember the time, Dad. I was sleepy, so I returned and went to sleep directly. He gave her a nod. We came back late at night, and when we went to check, your lights were off, you were sleeping, so we did not disturb you. Elisa felt relieved. If they somehow saw her with that jacket, it would be a big problem. Her father would have definitely asked her about it. How was the pack party, Dad? She tried to change the topic. Yeah, it was good. It was our Gamma's birthday. We had a good time and were about to come back soon, but his son stopped us, and we got stuck there. He arranged some games for his father and us. We played and then went for drinks. You know, Alpha Neil and Luna Ella. They did not let us leave before the party ended. Oh. It's good that you and Mom enjoyed it. Yeah, we did. We have been friends for a long time. So whenever we get time to have her together, we don't miss that. How about you? Did you enjoy your friend's birthday party? Her father's question made her recall everything about last night. The way she danced last night, she felt she was not herself but someone else. I did. She mumbled. Good. I like it when you try to enjoy your time. It would be best if you went out more often. I want you to develop into a delightful young lady, not a robot that merely carries out the tasks that we assign to her. It is now your turn to experience everything. Because once you are married, you will be expected to take on a great deal of responsibility, and you won't have much time for yourself during that time. She turned her head towards her father immediately. Marriage? Responsibility? What are you talking about, Dad? I am only 18. He chuckled at her. My princess, when I found your mother as my mate, she was also 18. We had just gotten married at the time, and look how far we have come. A cheerful home with a happy family. Elisa lowered her head. If she had heard these things before she was rejected, it would have made her blush or made her pleased. However, today, everything was different. She did not have anyone in her life with whom she could share such a thought, thus the idea of getting married was out of the question for her at the moment. Stop talking and come for breakfast. Hurry up. Her mother's voice reached her ears. She stood up, saying, "Let's go, Dad." Three of them sat at the table and had their breakfast while exchanging smiles. "Your semester is coming. How is your study going?" "Good." Her father asked, and she replied instantly. It was true that she was studying hard for her exams. "Lunella was talking about you last night," her mother said. "Me?" she asked. "Yeah. She was telling me that you are a hard-working girl. You are really doing well in training." "Really? How did she know?" "Of course, Logan told him. Alpha Neil told me so." Her father spoke out. Elisa glanced at her father. She was sure that her father was a fan of Logan. He always talked about him. He never let out anything wrong about him. After breakfast, Elisa returned to her room. She decided to stay at home today. Because from the next morning, she would have to start her daily schedule again. She stayed home the whole day and spent her time with her parents. She wanted to call Lucas to ask about last night. But she prevented her from doing that. It was nighttime when she came to her room after having dinner with her parents. She lay on the bed and began to think about last night. She thought about Lucas. In her eyes, he was not a harmful person. He was just walking in the wrong direction. He needed someone to make things right. She could not sleep, so she sat up and grabbed her phone. She started to scroll through the timeline of her social media account. She saw many girls from her school posting about Logan and Lucas, as usual. But her eyes fell on a few photos of her and Lucas that were also uploaded there. They looked very intimate in those photos. It looked like Lucas was hugging her from behind while dancing. Her jaw dropped when she saw those photos. Someone posted them a few minutes ago. The caption startled her the most. Playboy Alpha Lucas was spotted with a new chick last night at the Star nightclub. The following day, Elisa was upset. Tisa came to pick her up. After getting in the car, she turned her head to gaze out the window. "As you can see, I have read the post. The news spread like wildfire. You are free to share your thoughts on the matter in any way you see fit. You are aware that we can have a conversation, right?" After saying that, Tisa started the car. Elisa gave a small shake of her head and said, "I have nothing to say." "You went with him to a club?" "I couldn't believe it when I saw it. You were never one for going out to clubs and parties. How was it that he was able to persuade you to go with him?" "I had assumed that you would accompany Max." "What?" He told me that you would go there with Max. I thought I would not be alone, but then Max told me that you did not come with him. If I had known that you were going, I would have agreed with Max. You could have called me. I made a mistake. I should have called you." "No, it's okay. You had new experiences. I saw how you were having a good time with him. So he did his magic to you, hey?" Tisa asked with a singing tone. Elisa turned to her. "Don't talk nonsense. Nothing is like that. I don't know what has happened to me." "What do you mean?" "I turn into a different person whenever I am with him. In a good way or a bad way. I don't know." "Okay, relax. Don't worry much about it." Elisa gave her a nod and sighed. When they finally arrived at their school, everyone immediately began to talk about Elisa. She rolled her eyes. People had nothing to do except gossip about her. Look at her. She is so confident. Last time she was close with Logan, now she is with Lucas. Maybe Logan ditched her. Of course, he did. Do you think Logan can stick with this girl? What is her status? Nothing. An ordinary Omega can't have the head alpha. We all know how Lucas is. He will dump her soon. He only used girls for play. So she will be on his playing list soon. After that, she will be nothing. Elisa heard all the gossip. She tightened her fists and headed to the locker. Tisa was about to scold others, but she stopped her from saying anything. It will be no use. Let's go. She made her way to the first of her classes. When other students in the class glared at her, it made her feel uncomfortable and furious. She started attending the sessions one at a time and felt like slapping herself for her decision to go to the club with Lucas that night. She was afraid that if her father ever saw those pictures, it would be the end of her. When it came time for the break, she got along with Tisa, and the two of them went to the cafe. There, she also overheard others gossiping. Max came to chat with Tisa. He gave Elisa a glance and said, "Lucas was asking for you. He said you were not picking up his calls." Elisa made a frowning face and looked through her bag. She pulled her phone out. It was in silent mode. She could see a few missed calls from an unknown number. She still had not saved his number. She noticed a message had suddenly appeared. "Come to the rooftop. I am waiting." Elisa could not make up her mind about whether or not she wanted to go. But she stood up from her chair and looked at Tisa. "I am going to meet him. We will meet in the next class." "Are you sure?" "Yeah. Don't worry." "Okay." Elisa headed to the rooftop. She opened the door to the roof and entered the rooftop. She spotted Lucas standing there while he was holding onto the railing. She then proceeded towards him after closing the door behind her. "You sent me a message," she stated. Hearing her, he turned around. She looked at him and blushed when she remembered that he carried her to her room that night. "Oh, his jacket. Did he call me for his jacket? I left it at home. How did I forget it? How are you?" His deep voice took her out of her thoughts. "I'm fine." He stared at her, which made her feel nervous. "Do you have something to talk about?" she asked. He shook his head. "I just wanted to see you." "What? How is your health? What happened to me?" "I am totally fine." She was bewildered. Why is he asking me about my health? He looked away and turned around to the railing again, focusing on the entrance area. She stepped toward the railing and stood beside him. "That night, why didn't you wake me up? I did not want to disturb your sleep. What if my parents were at home? There was no way for them to reach there before us. How were you so sure?" A smile stretched across his lips. "I have my own way, baby," he replied in a low tone. Elisa closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She cleared her throat. "Lucas, I have to say something." "I'm all ears," he replied and turned to her. "Have you seen the posts?" He frowned as if he were not aware of anything. "What posts are you talking about?" he asked. "Nice. You had seen the posts with Logan and me that day. But not mine and yours." He narrowed his eyes. "Your and Logan's names don't sound good together. What are you talking about?" She glared at him for behaving like he did not know about those posts. So she took out her phone and searched for those posts. See? When she showed him the phone, he grabbed it. When his hand came into contact with hers and flinched. He was busy reading the posts and comments. He did not see her reaction. What's wrong with me? She asked herself for her own reaction. She looked at the man in front of her. His face turned grim as his eyes read those comments. Those posts are not only for me but also for him. Of course, he would get angry. She thought. He handed her phone to her. I will do something about it. Don't worry. He assured her as his eyes were looking down at the students. But she could see his mind was somewhere else. I believe it would be best if we kept our distance from each other. He turned his head as if he did not like her statement. With a cold tone, he replied, if you want to stay away, I won't force you to meet me again. His icy tone shocked Elisa, who was caught off guard. I didn't mean anything to hurt you, and it's just that I don't want anyone to misunderstand us. Please don't take this the wrong way. She tried to explain to him, but he interrupted her, I can understand you. Elisa nodded and left the rooftop. Lucas turned around and took out his phone. He dialed a number. It took one ring, and it connected. Find out the person who uploaded photos of me and Elisa, and bring them to me. Okay. Don't forget to take down all of the posts, like the boss, he instructed. Got it. Just give me 2 hours, please. Lucas's eyes turned dark. 1 hour. Bro, please. I have just woken up. Call in. Okay, fine. Within the next hour, the person who had the audacity to cause trouble for Alpha Lucas will be standing in front of you. Please don't do something when you meet them. They must be just mere students who want some clout. It's not our old place, don't be so cruel here. We'll see. However, there is something else that I need you to accomplish for me. Your wish, my command. Lucas smirked before announcing what it was that he wanted. Meanwhile, Elisa met with Tisa in the cafe. Max had already gone. Where is Max? She asked Tisa. He said he had something to do. Tisa replied. Oh, I thought you went to meet Lucas. Yeah, I did. I told him we should stay away from each other so that we don't have to face this type of controversy again. Tisa supported her chin with the palm of her hand and indicated with a nod that she understood. There is something I am curious about. What? A few days ago, you used to dislike him, but now you are talking to him. In fact, you believed that guy. You changed yourself and tried to move on. Now you confidently talk with Logan, and he is begging you to forgive him. What are you trying to say? Tisa hit her head. Silly, don't you think everything is going like how Lucas wanted at first? Wait, what? Elisa remembered when Lucas told her that he had a plan to make Logan regret it. She had declined his offer and explained to him that she had no interest in taking any form of revenge. No way, Tisa. He had said something about revenge. I am not going to take any retaliation. It was time to attend their next class. They headed to their class. After all the classes, Elisa said goodbye to Tisa and took a cab. She went to the pack house. It was her time for training, so she came here. She did not enter the residential area. She proceeded to the training hall directly. She saw many boys there. Her legs froze outside. Every single one of them did not have a shirt on and was simply wearing workout trousers. Logan stood directly in front of them. He did not have a shirt on either. His muscles were clearly visible. Since his entire body was drenched in sweat, it was clear that he had been instructing those young men for a long time. She just stood there and started watching his movements. He possessed a high level of fighting ability. When she watched him fighting a boy for everyone to see, she was utterly taken aback. He appeared to be furious in some way. So his punches were hard, and the boy looked scared as he took several powerful blows from him. Don't be scared, even if the enemy is stronger than you. Your fear will only make him stronger. Logan yelled at him. Yes, Alpha. The boy let out a scream and tried to attack him. But he was Alpha Logan. He grabbed his hands and tossed him to the ground. Elisa felt nervous for the boy. He looked the same as hers. What if he gets hurt? Why is he striking him like that? What exactly is wrong with him? She thought about Logan as she watched the fight. Elisa. She turned around when she heard someone's voice. Wade. It was Logan's best friend and the soon-to-be beta of this pack, Wade. He was entering the training hall when he saw her standing outside. Why are you not going inside? Wade asked as he stood beside her. Elisa glanced at Logan and replied to Wade, what's wrong with him today? Why is he so angry? Who knows? He did not even go to school today and told others to come for training. How long are they training here? 6 hours. What? Elisa's voice echoed throughout the room as she asked loudly. Everyone turned their heads toward her. Logan stopped his training and looked at her. Elisa felt embarrassed. She should not have shouted like that. I mean, 6 hours? How? Does he want to kill others? Maybe. He is not talking to anyone from last night. You can ask him. Perhaps he will answer you. Wade replied and chuckled. Everyone, your training is over for today. Don't forget to come back tomorrow at the exact time. Logan told the pack fighters. They felt relieved. They nodded and thanked him. They almost collapsed when they started to walk. Elisa entered the hall and stood in a corner. Those pack fighters were glancing at her before leaving the training hall. She saw that Wade had also left with them. She glanced at Logan. He took a white towel and wiped his hair, then moved it to his bare chest. She looked away from his body and asked, I heard you were training them for 6 hours straight. Do you want to train me today, or will I come tomorrow? Go and change your clothes. He sounded like he was ordering. His tone was not friendly at all. She headed to the changing room and put on her training clothes. When she came back, she saw that the door was closed. Why did you close the door? She asked him. He was standing beside a window, looking outside. He turned around and stepped towards her. He stopped in front of her and replied, so that no one can disturb us in training. Before Elisa could say anything, Logan pulled her hand and attempted to punch her back, but she blocked the blow with the other hand. It was his technique. He showed them to her to protect herself. She was using them against him today. Nice try. He muttered. He went for her right arm and landed a punch on it. Ah! She let out a cry. It did not stop him. He attempted to hit her shoulder, but she grabbed his hands and pushed him. What's wrong with you, Logan? She asked in a high tone. You wanted me to train you like a kid? Then sorry, Elisa Clark. I am an alpha. I can't do that anymore. He let out, and his leg hit lightly to get her leg. She fell to the ground. She glared at him. You are hurting me intentionally. So what? You should defend yourself. Your enemy won't show mercy to you in war. They will crack your neck in one go. Elisa got mad at him. She gathered all of her strength and stood up. He tried to attack, but she dodged his every hit. She practiced with him all these times, so she knew his moves now. But she knew it was nothing in front of how he trained those boys. He was going easy with her. She tried to grab his hands, but he spun her around quickly. Her back was pressed hard against his bare chest. It appeared as though he was trying to cross her hands with his own. She tried to put up a fight, but he was strong as a rock. After she struggled for so long without success, she gave up and just remained there, making no attempt to break free of his clutches. I didn't know that you liked clubs and parties. She heard him. He was a tall man, the same height as Lucas. He bent his neck, and she heard his words in her ear once more. Or do you only like it when you are with my brother? Elisa frowned and tried to move, but his hold became increasingly tight. This is the same position. You were beaming your smile at him. After I left the club, you seemed to have a great time at the party. What are you saying? I have seen those pictures. He uttered those words, had a little pause, and then murmured, but I don't like them at all. You were not looking good with him. He doesn't deserve to be with you like that. She froze at his whispers. It took time for her to get her mind back. Leave me! She spoke out in anger. He loosened his grip, and she turned around. However, he was not ready for her next move. The moment she turned around, she punched the left side of his chest with all of her strength. He took a step back and touched his heart. You don't have any right to talk to me like that. When he heard her, glared at her. He rushed to her, and it startled her. She thought he would hit her, but her back got pressed against a pillar. She shut her eyes tightly. You thought I would hit you? He asked while looking at her expression. She opened her eyes and looked at him. You have already done it. She gritted her teeth and replied. It was a part of training. I wanted to show you what the actual attack looks like. I see. She tried to push him, but he grabbed her hands to keep her from moving. I am telling you again. He is not good for you. He is not someone you can believe in. He will ruin you. Shut up. What are you blabbering about? There is nothing between me and him. And even if we have, that's none of your business, okay? I will be the head alpha. Securing my Pax Omegas is my duty. Oh, then you should look at others too. I have my parents to look after me. Your dad told me to look after you. What? Elisa could not believe this. Why was his father doing that? The more she tried to stay away from Logan, the more he tried to push her toward him. Why was that? Look, I don't want to talk about Lucas. I came here to get trained. You better do your duty well. Stop interfering in my life. Just promise me one thing. Why would I? He ignored her question and said, don't fall for him ever. He is trying to destroy you. What are you talking about? Why would I fall for him? Elisa was interrupted by chest pain. Ah! She rubbed her chest. Logan immediately let her hands go and asked, what happened? Ah! She fell to the ground while clutching her heart over her clothes. What's happening to you? Logan lifted her in his arms and rushed to the pack house. He mind-linked a way to call Linus and tell him to come there immediately. No one was in the living room, which made things easier. No one asked anything, and he went directly to his room. Elisa sobbed out of her suffering. It brought back the agony she had experienced after Logan rejected her. Why was she feeling that again? Was her wolf leaving her? But why? Logan laid her on his bed and caressed her head. Don't worry. Linus is on the way. My wolf. It's... She could not help but cry in front of him. Logan's eyes widened. He held her hand and asked, "What happened to your wolf?" Elisa was losing her mind in pain. She unintentionally told him about her wolf. You rejected me, and she was not reacting for a long time. Now that pain of that night came back to me again. Pain. Logan stared at her. He had no idea about how much pain she had to bear for him. His eyes turned red. Nothing will happen to your wolf. I promise. She shook her head and turned her head to the opposite side. If she lost her wolf, she would become a wolfless woman. How would she live in this werewolf world then? She would have to die. Linus and Wade entered the room together. They puffed as if they had come here in a hurry. What on earth happened, Elisa? Linus went to check on her. I want her wolf back, Linus. Logan stood up and warned Linus that if Linus could not fix the situation, he would kill him. Linus avoided the warning and checked on Elisa. His worried face turned into a relaxed one. He gave her an injection and said, "It is a painkiller dose. You will be fine, Elisa." She looked at him with glossy eyes. My wolf. She is totally back. It's the pain she felt for you. Now that she is back, you have to take it for her. Elisa's eyes lit up. She is back. Linus nodded his head. You can try to reach her. She nodded and tried to connect with her wolf. She heard a painful growl. Then she felt herself howling inside. Her wolf was howling in sorrow. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She let out a sigh while closing her eyes in pain. Yes, she is finally back to me. Logan was sitting on the bed. His fingers were running through Elisa's hair. She was lying on his bed. Her pain caused her to go numb, and the dose made her sleep to get rid of the pain. Linus and Wade were sitting on the couch. Their eyes were on Logan. She told me about it the next day you rejected her. Linus explained all the things to Logan. Logan's gaze was fixed on Elisa. He did not move his eyes from her for a second. Logan. Wade called him but he was silent. His mind was messed up. He was getting angry at himself. It was all my fault. Linus and Wade both turned quiet. They were in accord with it. I should have thought about her before. I assumed it 1 week before her birthday. Still, I did this to her. After half an hour, Linus and Wade left the room, leaving Logan and Elisa alone. After what seemed like a few hours, Elisa finally opened her eyes. The ceiling was unknown to her. Almost instantaneously, she sat up. How are you feeling now? She heard Logan beside her. She turned to the side and was stunned. He was sitting on the bed beside her. Good. She replied. She noticed a blanket wrapped around her. She pushed the blanket away from her body and tried to get down of the bed. He grabbed her wrist. Where are you going? I should leave now. You are not well yet. She touched her heart with her other hand. I am totally fine now. In fact, I just became fine. She got her wolf back. What else could she possibly want more of? Leave my hand. My mom and dad must be getting worried about me. I spoke with them a couple of hours ago. She turned to him. You what? Why? Did you tell them everything? Why didn't you tell them? He asked. She yanked her hand away and moved towards him. She pushed on his chest with her hands. What did I say? How did their favorite Logan reject me? Or how he left me to die in the forest? Or how I almost lost my wolf because of him. He was staring at her. He could not let out a single word. He was speechless. She scoffed at him. But the next moment, she was taken aback. Logan drew her close to him and wrapped her tightly in a hug. She blinked her eyes several times. Her hands were in the air. She was hesitant to push him. I am sorry, Elisa. Please forgive me. I was so wrong. I thought about my pack. I only thought about it. I did not think about you at that time. But I should have thought about it. I forgot about the consequences and rejected you. But I swear, I thought about you too. Becoming a Luna was not easy. It would have also endangered you. They always attack Luna first to take down the Alpha. I did not want to take any risks. But I had failed to think about the outcomes of this rejection. Elisa was staring at the blank wall. She was completely at a loss for words. She was so upset that tears were streaming out of her eyes and falling into his shirt. As if his life depended on it, he stroked her hair and hugged her even more tightly than before. I know I have committed a deadly sin. But I am regretting it now. I can't take it anymore. Should I die with the punishment? What can I do now? I am mourning in pain daily. How can you forgive me for the anguish I have caused you? His broken voice shook her to her very core. He was waiting for a response from her. But she kept quiet. He moved a little back and gazed directly at her. Their faces were very close to one another. Will you be able to forgive me? Elisa lowered her head and let out a long sigh. Look, Logan. I decided a few days ago that when I get back my wolf, I will forgive you so that I can free myself from this tragedy of my life. He cupped her cheeks and wiped her tears. Don't cry. She sobbed and pushed his hands slightly away. I am forgiving you. Because I can't be selfish, not even as a strong girl. I also can't handle going through that pain again. Therefore, it is best for me to forgive you and forget about those distressing memories for the rest of eternity. She climbed down from the bed and then stood up next to it. From now on, our life is separating from here. I will see you as a head alpha and won't curse you for what you have done. We will be family friends, and it will be maintained like before. Because we cannot divide our family for us. She turned around and took her phone and bag, which were placed on the nightstand. Where are you going? He asked. My home. You haven't eaten anything yet. Once I get back to my home, I will eat. She walked to the door and grabbed the doorknob. Elisa. She turned around to face him. What now? What if I tell you that I don't want our lives separated from each other? What? I want to be with you. She frowned at him. What do you mean? It hurt me deeply every time I saw you with Lucas. I don't want you to be with anyone else. I want you to be with me only. As she moved closer to him, she laughed at the words he had just said. Mr. Logan Ivervan, I just can't believe what you are saying. How can Alpha Neil think of you as a head alpha? You made a joke about your fate and rejected me. Then you felt regret and asked for forgiveness. Now you have changed your mind and decided that you want to be with the same girl who your fate had chosen for you and who you foolishly rejected. I just can't believe it. Do you think that you can play a game with my life? Am I a toy that you can have fun with and then put away whenever you want? He shook his head. I am not deceiving you in any way. I couldn't help but fall for you. You are the only one to whom my heart truly belongs now. She stared into his eyes, which were telling her that he was not lying. Her heart was pounding inside. She chuckled at her stupid heart, which was still beating for him. I can't. She replied and turned around to leave. But he hugged her from behind and rested his head on her neck, then confessed to her, "I fell in love with you, Elisa." She closed her eyes and allowed her tears to flow freely. Just as she was about to push his arms away from her waist, the door burst open. She opened her eyes and looked at the person who had opened the door. Lucas. Lucas's eyes were scheming over Elisa and Logan. His hands loosened on the doorknob. His eyes turned dark. Elisa stared at him as she was speechless in the situation. "Where are your manners? You should have knocked on the door." Logan let out. His arms were still wrapping around Elisa's waist. "You are right. I should have knocked," Lucas muttered. His eyes were fixed on Elisa. Elisa shook her head. "Lucas," he cut her off in the middle. "I came to check on you since I heard from the maids that you had become ill. But it looks like you are more than fine now." Logan nodded his head. "She is okay. No one needs to worry for her." "You are right. Since she has our head alpha, who needs to worry? Just carry on, don't mind me," Lucas said and left the room. He did not forget to close the door behind him. Elisa was dumbfounded. What had just happened? Elisa, she heard Logan and realized that he was still holding her. She broke his hold and turned to him. "Stop doing these. Just now, Lucas misunderstood us." "No, he got it right. I have feelings for you, and I know you still love me." "No, I don't. I don't love you. You are free to lie to me, but you cannot deceive yourself." Elisa left Logan's room, and her eyes fell on Lucas's room. She heaved a sigh and then walked away from the pack house. The following day, she arrived at school earlier than usual. "Where are you lost?" Tisa asked Elisa. They were sitting in the cafeteria since it was their only place to chat for a long time without being interrupted. "Elisa." She called her name and patted her arm. "Hey." Elisa's mind was stirred up by Logan's words. She did not know why her fate was playing with her like that. "Is everything okay?" Tisa asked her. She could not call and tell anything to Tisa last night because she went home and locked herself in her room. She cried in her room alone. "I forgave him." "You did? But you said..." "Yeah, I got my wolf back." "Elisa, why didn't you give me this good news before?" "There is another thing, Tisa." "What?" Tisa frowned as she waited for the answer. "He confessed to me." Elisa let out a whisper. Tisa gasped after hearing her. "He what?" Elisa lowered her head and rested her head on the table. "He said he fell for me." "How dare he? He rejected you and now he is talking like this? He should have accepted you, if he cared for you." "He said he fell for me after rejection." "Hey? That bastard! Because of him, you had to endure so much pain, you shouldn't give in to him so quickly." Elisa heard her and closed her eyes. She was confused. Before the rejection, she was madly in love with Logan. His one glance was enough to make her smile. But now, how did the situation turn out like this? She was not happy, but mad at him. His confession rubbed salt into her wounds. She tried to forget everything, but now his words stuck in her mind entirely. "Do you want to accept him?" Tisa raised a question. She lifted her head and shook it. "No, I don't want him in my life again. I have had enough. I just..." She paused as she thought about those days when she ran after him like a crazy fangirl. From her childhood days, he was the apple of her eye. She wanted him to be with her forever. She gave him the place that she would never be able to give to anyone else again in her entire life. Despite the fact that he destroyed her heart and she forgave him for that, the hole he left behind was not completely filled. Tisa stroked her hair. Don't think about it. Just leave everything to fate, as you told me before. Wait and watch what it has decided for you. She nodded and spoke out, last night, he hugged me to stop me from leaving. At that time, Lucas opened the door and saw us together. Did he create any scenes there? No. But I think he misunderstood us. Tisa looked at Elisa carefully. If you go around with Lucas, it would be controversial because we all know he is a playboy. So you can think about it. But even if Lucas misunderstood you and Logan, so what? You were not self-conscious before. What happened to you? Elisa sat up straight and turned to Tisa. You are right. Why should I give a damn? At that moment, Lucas entered the cafe with Max and Owen. Everyone's eyes fell on him. All the girls were staring at him. Elisa heard those girls and twisted her head to his side. He walked to a table in the corner and sat there. It looked like he had just come to school. She had not seen him coming to the cafe usually. Today he looked different too. His face was cold, and his eyes were dark. His white shirt and black jeans fit his body so well. His muscles were visible to others in that outfit. Elisa began to think of the tattoo that she had noticed on his chest when they first met at the club. He was wearing a white shirt that day too. Today his tattoo was hidden under his shirt. She saw his friends standing up and asked him something, then headed to order for them. Her gaze was fixed on him. Suddenly, his eyes caught her gaze, as if he knew she was staring at him. She felt her heart skip a beat, and she looked away from him. What? Do you want to clear the misunderstanding? Tisa inquired. Should I? Your wish. Okay. Elisa pressed her hands on the table and stood up. She slowly proceeded to the table where Lucas was sitting. Others were looking at her as she went there. They had already seen those pictures of her and Lucas, so they started to make up stories about them in their minds. Elisa had come to a stop in front of Lucas and said while looking at him, "Do you have some time? I need to talk to you." Lucas looked behind Elisa. As soon as she turned around, she could see that his friends were making their way there. However, when Lucas shifted his gaze on them, they smiled politely, nodded their heads, and proceeded to sit with Tisa. Tisa looked at Max. Max introduced Owen to Tisa. Then they started to talk. Sit. After hearing Lucas, Elisa turned her attention to him. He indicated for her to take a seat in the chair that was directly across from him. She sat down and tried to find words to talk to him. I wanted to talk about last night. What about it? I think you misunderstood me and Logan. Misunderstood? Yeah, I mean. What you saw, nothing was like that. He did not reply to her. But his gaze was dark and remained on her. She felt strange inside just looking at his angry face. Is he mad? Why? He looks furious. She thought. Lucas. She called out his name when she saw him staring at her for a while. He exhaled deeply and shook his head in response. There is nothing that I have misunderstood. I believe what I see. What do you mean? Nothing. I thought you wanted to stay away from me. She was taken aback by his statement. I came to clear your misconception. I did not think anything. Therefore, there is no need for you to be concerned about it. You are in charge of your own life and decisions. You are aware of what would be most beneficial to you. She was at a loss for words, so instead of continuing to speak, she simply nodded and stood up. Okay, then I am going, bye. Take care. He let out. She stopped moving and looked at him for a moment. He gave her a friendly smile. His face was not grim anymore. He looked delighted again, which made her feel at ease without her even realizing it. She smiled at him. You too. Then she headed back to Tisa's table. Max and Owen greeted her and went to Lucas. Tisa walked out of the cafe while holding her hand. I saw what had happened. Why did his grim face suddenly become so pleased? I don't know. He reminded me that I told him to stay away. Then he advised me not to worry and that my life belonged to no one but me. Whenever I talk to him, I always end up more confused than before. He is quite mysterious. After talking with Tisa, she went to attend classes. Tisa had a different schedule for the day than she did. So she had no choice but to sit through the majority of her classes without Tisa. After the classes, she left the school. Tisa was the first person to leave because she had some stuff to do at home. Elisa started to walk down the street. She thought about taking a bus. She heard the horn of a car. She came to a halt when a car pulled up next to her. She turned around and watched the widow being pushed down, which revealed Logan's face. Elisa, what are you doing here? She asked. Logan did not go to school today. What exactly was he doing in the middle of the road that led to the school? I came to pick you up. He replied. I don't want to go with you. She said and began to walk again. He started her car and drove beside her. If you choose not to accompany me, I will continue driving in this manner. He yelled from his moving car. What is your problem? She asked and turned to him. You know my problem. And my solution is only you. He let out and chuckled. She raised her brows and wondered whether he had lost his mind. She went to the bus stop and sat down on one of the available seats. When she saw Logan pull over to the side of the road and get out of his car, she rolled her eyes. She couldn't help but grimace as he approached her. He came and sat down beside her. She paid him no attention and pulled out her phone instead. She began to make use of her phone. She gave him a quick glance and spotted him peeking at her phone in her hand. She moved her phone a little distance away and asked, What are you looking at? Who are you chatting with? She was not chatting with anyone. She was just searching for some topics for her new assignment. But she replied, with someone. You don't have to know. A boy. What if it's a boy? He scoffed and muttered, It must be Lucas. Lucas. Not him? Then whom? Why did you think it was him? I heard about you and him talking in the cafeteria. What? Are you stalking me? No, but I have my men everywhere. As if I care. She heaved a sigh and looked across at the bus that was coming. After getting to her feet, she boarded the bus. She sat on a seat beside a window. A boy sat beside her. She felt a sense of relief that she did not have to face Logan. But she was totally wrong. Because Logan got on the bus and came in the direction of her seat. She gave him a kind grin. I'm sorry, but the seat next to me has already been taken. Please go somewhere else. He glared at the boy, who immediately stood up and bowed to him. Alpha, everyone on the bus turned to Logan, in fact, the bus driver too. They slightly bowed their heads. He gave them a nod and sat beside her. The boy who was sitting beside her went to another seat behind her. Elisa slapped her forehead and turned to the window. The seat next to you was always available for me. I see. She murmured. How are you now? Better than last night? Are you still angry with me? She turned to him. Why would I? I told you that I. Stop it. I told you that we are just family friends. Don't bring up those things again. He turned silent and nodded. After a while, he smiled and said, then we are only friends now. Okay. She narrowed her eyes. How easily he had changed his feelings. The bus stopped, and she stood up without replying to him. She hurriedly got off the bus before him. Child, how are you? She stopped and turned around. It was the old woman whom she had met before. It seemed like she always traveled at this time. Hello. They smiled at each other and started to walk forward. I see you are happy now. You have got your wolf back. Elisa's jaw dropped. How do you know? I can sense that. Oh. She became wordless. Your mate? I don't have any mates now. He rejected me, and I am mateless. So please don't talk about him to me. Okay, don't be furious. He is not your mate. But you can't deny his favor. The old woman said and chuckled. They strolled a little far from the bus stop. Favor? Help. He really helped you in getting your wolf back. Elisa's steps halted. Did Logan really help me? How? She remembered that she told him about her wolf when she started to feel pain. How? She asked the old woman. The old woman remained silent for a few seconds, and it seemed as though she was considering before saying anything. But then she said, he is the Almighty of every rank. How could a simple witch like me possibly know about it? Elisa was taken aback by the woman's statements. She cast a quick glance behind the old woman. Logan was heading in their direction. Almighty of every rank. I didn't know Logan was this powerful. She thought. He stopped beside her. You are really stubborn. He spoke out. Elisa looked at the old woman. He is Alpha Logan. The old woman smiled at Logan. Of course, we all know him. Logan nodded at the woman and grabbed Elisa's hand. Let's go. We have to walk 10 minutes from here. Elisa offered the old woman a pitiful smile and then leaned in close to whisper, you were talking about him the whole time, but look at him. How arrogant he is. Logan pulled her along with him. She waved at the old woman and started to walk ahead. She started to argue with Logan for dragging her. The old woman had a frown on her face. There was bewilderment in her emerald eyes. She stared at Elisa, and then her gaze shifted to Logan. She whispered to herself, but I was not talking about him. When Elisa reached the pack house area, she immediately went to change her clothes into training clothes. Logan frowned at her. We should at least take some rest first before starting training. Elisa scoffed at him and folded her arms against her chest. The alpha who trained his pack fighters for 6 hours is talking about taking some rest. He scratched his neck and looked away from him. You are not my pack fighter. She rolled her eyes. Stop calling me weak indirectly. What? No. I didn't mean that. Let's start the training. I have to go home early today. Why? Do I need to answer everything? Why not? I have some work at home. She replied with a sigh. She wanted to go for a run. That night, when she reached home, her parents asked her about her health. She was relieved that Logan did not let out anything about her wolf to them when he had called them to inform them about her. Logan walked to the changing room to change and then emerged wearing a pair of training pants. She was using her phone for some information about her assignment that she could not see on the bus because of Logan. Her eyes fell on Logan when he told her to get in the position. She narrowed her brows and averted her eyes from him. "Where is your shirt? Why do you need my shirt? Why are you not wearing any? Don't be shy. We are here for training only," he said and smirked at her. She wanted to smack on his smirk or throw a few punches on his cheeks continuously. "Stop thinking about killing me. I am not training you to apply my skills over me." Her eyes widened when he found out her thoughts. "What are you? Vampire? Soon to be head alpha of the Moonlight Crown Pack?" She did not argue with him and walked toward him to start the training. She could see Logan's eyes. He looked hurt when he said that she was thinking about killing him. After 2 hours of training, Elisa took a shower and came out wearing a purple floral dress. Logan looked amazed by looking at her appearance. This was not the dress that she had put on to go to school today. He guessed she had taken the dress with her in her bag to wear it after training. An expression of enlightenment crawled across his face. She came out of the training hall and was ready to go back home. He walked toward her and stood beside her. Her steps halted as she looked at him. He bent down to her ears and whispered, "You are beautiful." She blinked a few times. It was her habit whenever she felt puzzled. She stepped back and replied, "Thanks. But I don't need your compliment. Elisa, let's start everything fresh." She looked away from him and said, "Bye, Logan." She headed outside and hailed a cab to go to her house. At night, she had her dinner with her parents. When they went to sleep, she took the chance and went out of her house. She knew her parents would not let her go out at night to run. But she wanted to shift and run, so she grabbed the opportunity and came out. She headed in the direction of the forest area that was just across from her home. She went into the woods for the first time after regaining control of her wolf and shifted at the same moment. She started to run when the pure white wolf's paws hit the ground. She felt alive, as if she had been dead all this time. As she continued to move forward, the moonlight shone down on her body through the moving leaves of the trees. Her ocean blue eyes were so beautiful that any male wolf would want to have her. The scent coming from her was something that every male wolf desired. Her soft white fur and beautiful body were bliss for the viewers. That was why her parents did not want her to go for a run. His father was strict about it. It was impossible for her to go for a run unless she could persuade her father to accompany her. Elisa came to a stop while she was sprinting and looked around. Her wolf was delighted. She had a feeling that she had never been in any kind of pain before. In fact, she felt even more powerful than in the past. All of a sudden, the sound of something crunching came to Elisa's ears. Her heart froze up out of sheer terror at the prospect of being killed by a male wolf. She did not turn to check behind her and instead leapt to increase her speed. She was well aware that her stride would not help her in escaping the danger. She scolded herself mentally for being so foolish as to take the chance. Dad was right. I am sorry, Dad. I didn't listen to you. In her head, she repeated the phrase to herself. After she had run for a while, she was confused as to where she had come. She sensed someone was approaching from behind her. She was able to hear footsteps. She howled in fear and started to run again. However, someone came from the right side and grabbed her in his arms. Gotcha! She started whimpering in fear and struggling while she was in his arms. She was so frightened that she could not bear to look at the man who held the body of her wolf in his arms and stared at her. But, a scent caught her nose, and unknowingly, her wolf became calm. She slowly raised her head to see the man. She was shocked when she saw him. Lucas. She mumbled in her head. In his arms, the wolf looked like his pet. His eyes narrowed as he looked at her wolf. She glanced around and realized that it was the same place where he had brought her a few days earlier. It was his place. She was somehow relieved that he had given her permission to come here. But why was he looking at her in such a strange way? She recalled that he had mentioned to her this morning that the two of them would keep their distance from each other. She closed her eyes and felt embarrassed. She was the one who came back to him. He slowly put her down on the ground and looked into her ocean blue eyes with his dark gaze. "Who are you, little Omega?" Elisa was taken aback by this. Why was he unable to recognize her when he saw her wolf? Then it hit her mind. Only mates could feel each other's scent as mates. It was different from others' normal body odor. Elisa frowned when she tried to talk with him in mind link but was unable to do so. What happened to him? Did he shut his mind links for the whole pack? Does he not want to contact anyone here? Not even his parents? Lucas's gaze even deepened. "Do you know this place is restricted from entering? This is my place." She stared at him in her wolf form, totally aware of the fact. "I can kill you for your bravery." Her wolf whined as she stepped back. He noticed it and chuckled. "But it's okay. Since you dared to come here, I liked your boldness. You can come here again." Elisa scoffed inside her head. "This playboy. He told me that I was the only one except for him who could be allowed here. But now he has changed his decision? Why? Just because he saw a new girl, a new girl's wolf." She was blabbering inside her mind and scolded Lucas. She stepped back, but she was stupefied when her wolf took over her and began to go close to him. "What the hell? Are you trying to seduce him? Hey! Stop it! What are you doing?" She chastised her wolf. However, the table turned. Now her wolf was the one who shut her mind link with her. It looked like her wolf liked Lucas. Elisa was confused by this situation. She let her wolf do whatever she wanted. She did not try to shift since her wolf came back to life from death. Lucas let out a chuckle when the white wolf rubbed her body against his chest. She started to rub her head under his chin. Elisa felt strange by her wolf's actions. If she shifted at this moment, he would be able to see how her entire face was flushed. "It seems like you are a naughty wolf," he whispered in her ear. She felt goosebumps all over her body. However, the pain did not stop. He stroked her white fur. "Follow me. I will show you something," he said and stood up. He turned around and began ahead. Elisa trailed following him like a shadow. She could sense the joy that her wolf was experiencing. Nevertheless, she was also interested in seeing what Lucas would show her. Lucas stopped in front of the lake and sat down beside it. He patted the place next to him. "Come. Sit here." Elisa was amazed by the scenery in front of her. She remembered that Lucas once told her that it looked beautiful at night. He had told her the truth. The moon was looking heavenly. Its reflection on the lake's water looked like paradise. What a gorgeous view! She felt the wind blowing and touched her white fur. She walked to Lucas and sat down beside him. She looked at him. But his eyes were on the water. "Tell me something about you," he let out. She stared at him and said in her head, though she knew he could not listen to her, "First open your mind links," but he seemed to be looking for an answer from her as he continued to stare at her. "What? Shift now," he said to her. She wanted to growl at him, but again, her wolf did the opposite thing. Instead of growling, she howled. It was a howl of sorrow. She looked at the moon and howled for a while. After all, each and every one of them was a moonchild. Lucas did not say anything again. Because of his silence, her wolf turned to look at him. "You are beautiful." His tone was gentle, and he gazed at her carefully the entire time. Elisa heard the same compliment from Logan today, but the way Lucas was talking with her wolf was new to her. He was conversing with her wolf. Surprisingly, her wolf was also listening to him. Tisa was right. He has enough charm to grab any girl's attention. He even melted my wolf's heart. Nice, very nice, Lucas. Elisa muttered inside. The two of them sat under the moonlight for a long time. It looked like a portrait. Under the illuminated moon, there was a man dressed in all black sitting with a wolf that was completely white. When Lucas finally spoke out, he broke the silence by saying, "I can't shift right now. Otherwise, I will let you meet my wolf." He winked at her and waited to see her reaction. His statement left Elisa with a feeling of bewilderment. Why could he not shift? Was his wolf okay? As if he understood her inner thoughts, he replied, "I have my own problems, you know." He turned to look at the water, and his eyes turned dark, which did not escape her observation. Many people have the misconception that being careless makes life easier, but this is not the truth. Life is full of surprises. If I had not come back to this pack, I would not have been able to understand it. His words were beyond her senses. Still, she tried to understand him. She thought he was talking about his family. His parents and Logan thought that he was a careless guy, which was true. But she knew that Lucas had his own story to become like this. Suddenly, she wanted to learn more about him. Hours passed in silence. Elisa did not feel bored. The main reason for going for a run was to let her wolf shift, which she had done properly. Her wolf was okay now. She was having her best time outside. Since it was already late, Elisa stood up. She was anxious that her parents would find out that she had been going out so late at night without telling them. Lucas looked at her with a frown. "Are you leaving?" Suddenly, her wolf expressed a desire to stay for some time. But Elisa could not let her do that. She had to go back. She turned around and started to walk. "Goodbye, little Omega." She paused for a moment and then turned her head to face him. He gave her a friendly smile. She could not help but wonder if he was like this with all of the girls and their wolves that he came in contact with. She was ready to head home but stopped by his voice behind her, "You reminded me of someone I know." Her steps halted again. She was hesitant to step forward. She was afraid that he might recognize her. Then she heard him again, "Someone who always tries to run away from me but ends up coming back to me." Elisa came back home safely and shifted back. The moment she entered her bedroom, she immediately began to reflect on what Lucas had said. Was he talking about her? Did they really get close to each other? She remembered their meeting at the club when he returned the pack. He was an arrogant boy in her eyes. But now she felt that he had a different side too. How did he change her perception of him? The next morning, she woke up late. Tisa called her, and she woke up by the call. "Elisa, where are you?" "Tisa, let me sleep." "No, I need to tell you something. I'm in school. Hurry up and come to the school." Elisa rubbed her eyes and sat up. She checked the time and hurriedly got ready. She could not get proper sleep last night. "Elisa, first have breakfast." Joey shouted behind her when she saw her running to the main door. "No, no. I'm late, Mom. I will have something in the canteen. Don't forget to come back early today." "Okay, Mom." Elisa hailed a cab to go to school. She had no idea why her mother told her to go back early today, but she would do that since her mother asked for it. When she arrived at school, she hurriedly walked to the entrance. However, many students stopped her in the middle of the way. "Sorry, Elisa." "Yeah, we are sorry." "Really, sorry. We didn't know about you." She looked at those boys and girls with a frown. "Elisa," she heard Titus's voice. Tisa came into the crowd and grabbed her wrist. She pulled her out of the gathering. "What's happening?" Elisa asked her. "Let's go to the class first. We will talk there." Tisa replied and pulled her to the classroom. The professor had not entered the classroom yet. It was the third class on their schedule. She missed 2 classes. Elisa furrowed her brows when all the students looked at her. She could see fear in their eyes. Elisa sat in her seat and asked Tisa, "Care to explain? Someone exposed your identity." "Wait, what?" "Yeah, now everyone knows that you are Beta Glenn's daughter." Elisa glanced at everyone, and all of them still peeked at her as if she were a harmful creature. "Who did this?" she inquired. "I don't know. But you are a hot topic now." She rolled her eyes. "As if I wasn't 2 days ago." "You know what? Whoever did this, I should thank them now." "So you are okay with it now?" "Not okay. But I did not like when everyone talked about how my upbringing was. They badmouth my parents for letting me go to the pack house for parties." Tisa nodded her head. A smirk shuffled across her face. "Now they will know what they did. They talked about Beta Glenn. No one would try to talk now." Elisa chuckled and rested her hands on the bench. "Why are you in a not-so-good mood today?" Tisa asked. "I went for a run last night." "How is your wolf? Is she okay?" Elisa thought about what her wolf did last night. Memories came to her mind like a flashback. "She did something I had never thought of." "What did she do?" "I met Lucas in the forest." She did not tell her about Lucas's secret place. "Again? Honey, don't you think you are meeting this guy everywhere?" "You think so?" "Yeah. He could not recognize my wolf. So I was silent about it." The professor entered the room, and they stopped chatting. Tisa suddenly spoke out, "Elisa, don't you think Lucas is strange?" "Hey? Strange?" "Yeah, I mean, from what I've heard from you about him, he is not a bad guy. But he forcibly created a negative image of him." Elisa gave it some thought. Tisa was right. Why was Lucas doing that? She was confused about one thing. Why are he and his family so distant from each other? What is the reason? She thought. "Where are you lost?" She came out of her thoughts by Tisa. "Nothing. Just thinking about what you've said." "What about your Logan?" "My Logan? Hey! What are you saying?" Tisa chuckled but stopped when she saw the professor taking glances at them. They did not want to take any detention. After all the classes, Elisa thought of going home directly. But Tisa dragged her to the cafeteria to have lunch with her. Elisa sat at the table, and Tisa went to order for them. Elisa could hear others mumbling about her. Before today, no one was aware of the fact that she was their Beta's daughter. Thinking about something, she heard a voice and turned her head. Logan smiled at her and pulled out a chair to sit beside her. "Hi!" he greeted her. She let out a sigh and looked down at her hand. "Are you upset?" he asked. "Why would I? Everyone knows about you now." She lifted her head and looked at him. Did you do that? No, I wasn't the one who did it. Then who was it? While he was looking at her, he placed his elbows up on the table and leaned his chin into the palm of his hand. Who knows? It must have been any girl who felt jealous of your beauty, so she searched for you and found out about it. She looked at others who were looking at them now. Tisa's jaw dropped as she fixed her eyes on them from afar. Elisa looked away and scoffed at Logan. You start to flirt with me now. What can I do? No matter what, you won't accept me. I am feeling abandoned. She averted her gaze from him. Stop being silly. I told you. I don't love you anymore, Logan. He sat straight and looked at her intensely. I know your heart is still beating for me. Stop lying to yourself, Elisa. She turned her head toward him, looking into his eyes. She could see how desperate those eyes were. When she heard someone clear her throat, she quickly averted her gaze away from them. Tisa flashed a friendly smile at Logan. During the downtime in the training, you can converse with her. This is the time that I get to spend with my best friend. Logan got to his feet and said, Sure, I just came to talk with her about tonight's pack party. Elisa frowned, pack party? Logan nodded his head. It's Mom's birthday. Uncle Glenn told me that you are going to be there with them tonight. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.